Manchester United are making a decision that could change everything this summer. A major striker move, a shock midfield decision, and Marcus Rashford is at the centre of it all. But there's one twist nobody saw coming. This is Red Break. Let's get into it. Before we even get to the striker situation, there's something else moving right now. Two names, same position, and according to Fabrizio Romano, both are further along than people think. Start with this one. Danilo has been offered to Manchester United. Offered, not chased, not scouted, put directly in front of the club by his side. But here's the catch. Romano says this deal is not advancing right now. Why? Because United have different priorities in midfield. So think about that for a second. A player being pushed toward Old Trafford, and United are essentially saying, not yet. Maybe not at all. That's a pretty clear signal about where their head is really at. But it doesn't stop there. Romano also confirms United have held concrete talks with Manu Koné's agents. Concrete talks. That's not speculation. That's an actual conversation happening behind the scenes. But before you get too excited, there's a big piece missing. No contact with Roma yet. No official bid on the table. Nothing formal. So United are talking to the player's side, while the club that actually owns him hasn't heard a word. That tells you exactly where this is. Early. Very early. And here's the bigger picture. Koné isn't the only name on United's list for that defensive midfield role. He's one option among several. Nothing is decided. Danilo, offered but stalled. Koné, talked about but not official. Same position, two different situations. And United still haven't shown their hand on either one. Now, let's get into the story that could change United's attack completely. United are preparing to submit a formal bid for Ollie Watkins, but only if Joshua Zirkzee is out the door first. Aston Villa are open to letting Watkins go for around £40 million. And that number isn't scaring United off, not even close. Here's the thing though, Zirkzee isn't just some fringe player United are trying to quietly offload. He's already drawing interest from Juventus and from Roma, two massive Italian clubs, circling, waiting. So picture this, United are essentially running a swap play without actually swapping anyone, sell Zirkzee to Serie A, turn around, bring in an experienced Premier League striker who already knows exactly what this league demands physically every single week. That's the plan. And Watkins isn't some gamble. He's not a project signing. He's a proven England international who has been banging in goals in a genuinely brutal league for years. No settling in period needed, no adaptation curve. But here's where it gets interesting. United already have Benjamin Sesko, a young striker still finding his footing at Old Trafford. So why go after another number 9? Because United see Watkins as more than just a goal scorer. They see him as someone who can actually support Sesko's development, mentor him, push him, compete with him for that starting spot every single week. That's a very deliberate move, not panic buying, planning. But this entire deal hinges on one thing. Zirkzee has to leave first, and that's where it gets messy. United paid £35 million for Zirkzee just last summer. Now, reports suggest he might not even fetch that much back. Think about that. A striker signed for £35 million, potentially sold at a loss just to fund a move for another striker. That's not a good look on paper. But football fans have seen this movie before. Sometimes the smart move and the flattering headline are two completely different things. And that's already got fans split. Some see it as United finally being decisive. Others are asking the obvious question. If Zirkzee was such a big signing, how did it go this wrong, this fast? That question isn't going away. Not until one of these two strikers is actually out the building. Now let's switch focus, because while everyone's watching the striker situation, something confusing is happening in midfield. United have already spent £85 million on midfielders this summer. Andre Santos, Youri Tielemans, both through the door already. And yet, they're still in the market for a third name in that area of the pitch. That third name, Aurelien Tchouameni, the so-called dream signing. But here's the twist. One report says United aren't totally committed to the idea of bringing in a third midfielder at all. Then another report drops. Manchester United are unlikely to even pursue Tchouameni, despite Real Madrid reportedly being open to discussing his future. Real Madrid willing to talk, and United are the ones stepping back. Why? The fee, the salary. Neither fits United's current spending plans. Simple as that. So think about where that leaves things. 85 million already spent, a dream midfielder available, Real Madrid apparently open to it, and United quietly walking away from the conversation anyway. That's the kind of story that gets fans arguing in the comments before the video's even finished. Because on one side, you've got supporters saying, spend whatever it takes for a player of that level. On the other side, you've got people pointing at the wage structure and saying United have been burned by exactly this kind of spending before. Instead, the priority has shifted somewhere else entirely. A left-sided player and a forward to work alongside Šeško. Sound familiar? That's Watkins again. Two separate stories, same conclusion. United are circling their striker department hard and pulling back everywhere else. So here's the open loop. If Tchouameni really is off the table, does that midfield stay as it is for the rest of the window? Or is there a cheaper alternative already being lined up behind the scenes that nobody's talking about yet? We genuinely don't know yet, but keep that question in the back of your mind because it connects to almost everything else happening at Old Trafford right now. Now here's the story everyone's actually waiting for. Marcus Rashford. Rashford is still officially a Manchester United player right now, today, but officially isn't the same as permanently. Because the door isn't closed. He could still move somewhere else this summer. Nothing about this situation is settled. Not for United, not for Rashford, not for anyone trying to predict what happens next. And here's why that matters more than people realise. United have been linked with wide forwards all summer. Multiple names have come up in conversation. But almost none of that talk has turned into anything concrete. Why? Because everything is tied to Rashford. If Rashford stays, if he's back in that dressing room in August, United are almost certain not to bring in a new senior forward for that position. One player's decision is basically freezing an entire section of United's transfer business. Not a rumour, not a maybe, an actual roadblock sitting right in the middle of the plan. Meanwhile, Crescencio Somerville now looks set to move overseas. That's one name off the board already. But beyond that, quiet. Almost too quiet. And that quiet is the story. Not some big flashy name. The silence around wide forward targets tells you everything about how much weight Rashford's decision is carrying right now. Think about the position United are in. They can't fully commit to a replacement because if Rashford stays, that replacement becomes a very expensive bench player. But they also can't fully plan around Rashford staying because nothing is confirmed. It's a waiting game, and waiting games in football transfer windows rarely stay quiet for long. Now let's talk about who's actually walking out the door, because United's exit list is getting clearer by the day. Joshua Zirkzee, already covered. But there's more. Altay Bayindir, expected to head back to Turkey. Radek Vitek, he's already made it clear he wants regular first-team football, and he's not going to get that sitting behind United's number one. So that's TAO backup goalkeepers heading out the exit, on top of a striker who might be sold at a loss, on top of a midfielder United are now backing away from, on top of a forward position completely on hold because of Rashford. This isn't just squad tweaking. This is a full reshape happening in real time. Multiple positions, multiple storylines, all moving at once. Now, here's what's fascinating about all of this. On paper, it looks scattered. A goalkeeper here, a midfielder they're walking away from there, a waiting game on Rashford. But zoom out, and you start to see a pattern. United aren't chasing headlines this summer. They're not throwing money at the biggest name available, even when that name is sitting right there in Madrid. They're being selective. Watkins isn't a marquee panic signing. He's a calculated support piece for Šeško. Tchouameni, as tempting as he sounds, doesn't fit the budget, so United are letting him go. And Rashford? United are letting that situation play out naturally instead of forcing a decision. Is that smart? Or is that United avoiding the tough calls because nobody wants to be the one who says no to a dream signing or moves Rashford on? That's genuinely up for debate. And honestly, it depends entirely on how the next few weeks go. Quick recap before we wrap this up because there's a lot on the table. Watkins could be United's next striker, but only once Zirkzee is gone, with Juventus and Roma both circling. Tchouameni was the dream, but the fee and the wages have United stepping back, even with Real Madrid apparently willing to talk. Rashford's situation is still unresolved after Barcelona let their option expire, and that alone is holding up United's entire wide forward plan. And behind the scenes, two goalkeepers are already heading for the exit. 4 completely different storylines, one squad, and every single one of them affects the others. That's what makes this window so hard to predict. It's not just about who United sign, it's about the order everything happens in. But one thing is clear, the next few weeks are going to define United's entire squad shape for the season. Watkins, Zirkzee, Tchouameni, Rashford. 4 names, 4 different directions, and only United can decide how it all plays out. Football's funny like that. Sometimes the biggest transfer story of the summer isn't about who's coming in, it's about who won't make a decision. So here's the big picture. United are trying to build depth and mentorship into their attack with Watkins. They're stepping back from a dream midfield move because the numbers don't add up. They're letting Rashford's situation breathe instead of forcing it, and quietly they're clearing out the goalkeeping ranks to make room for what's next. But what do you think? Should United be going all in for Tchouameni regardless of the price, or is walking away from him the smart move here? Let me know below. See you to the next updates.